In the 1980s, Masters of the Universe was a dominant force in the toy aisles, a true success for Mattel. But while the line was winding down in the United States by 1986, it was just getting started in other parts of the world. In a past episode of Toysplosion, we took a look at some of the rare and bizarre releases from Argentina under license by Top Toys. Now it's time to look at even more releases, some that you may not have even known existed, but this time from over in India. It's the rare and amazing Masters of the Universe variants of Leo toys today on Toysplosion. So before we start taking a look at some of those fun Leo Toys variants, let's first learn a little about how they came to be. Mattel first attempted to enter the Indian toy market in 1986, but because Indian foreign trade laws did not favor multinational companies like Mattel, this made it quite difficult to conduct business in the country. The Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, or FIRA, mandated that all companies holding more than 40% equity in an Indian subsidiary must register themselves under FIRA, where they were then forced to dilute their shares down to 40%, thus becoming an Indian company. In order to avoid being classified as a FIRA company, Mattel partnered up with an Indian marketing company called Blow Plast Incorporated in a joint venture forming an Indian affiliate known as Leo Mattel, or Leo Toys. Blow Plast Incorporated held 60% and Mattel held 40%, thus allowing Mattel to enter the Indian toy scene. It is worth noting that while this partnership allowed Mattel to operate in India, it did not allow them the ability to import raw materials from China or even use their pre-existing production factories. As a result, Leo Mattel set up a new factory for production in Mumbai, which is likely the contributing factor to why the toys we're about to look at today are so different than the US releases that we're used to. Alright, so now that we've got all of that out of the way, why don't we go ahead and take a look at some of the cooler Masters of the Universe figures released by Leo Toys. We'll kick things off by looking at our main hero and villain, He-Man and Skeletor. As you'll see as we're looking through these figures, Leo Toys often offered up the same figures that we received in the US, albeit usually with slightly different colors. Thus is the case with He-Man here. He looks like our hero, he's easily recognizable, but something about him just seems different. It's all in those colors. The skin tone is a little lighter, and the gray used for his power harness and weapons are a bit of a deeper gray with a slight hint of blue. It almost gives him the appearance of being a bootleg, but he is indeed a fully licensed toy. And worth noting that this is only one color variation for He-Man released by Leo Toys. But then we come to Skeletor, whose color difference is a bit more drastic. We're used to seeing Skeletor with signature pale blue skin, but as you can see, this version is a very dark blue instead. There were versions released by Leo that more resemble that lighter blue that we're used to, but it's this dark blue version that is quite striking, making him really stand out as something different and unique. As a result, he is one of the more sought-after figures from this lineup. There's just something about that alternate color scheme that is really appealing to collectors. While we're talking about these two, I feel it's worth mentioning the packaging that the Leo Toys figures came in. Many figures came on similar card backs to the US releases, with the signature red exploding brick design. But some Masters of the Universe figures from Leo Toys came on these completely unique versions that utilize the blue design and logo from Mattel's New Adventures of He-Man toy line. This likely occurred since by the time many of these figures were released in India, Mattel had already launched the New Adventures toy line in the US. It's really bizarre seeing the graphics for the updated version of He-Man on the slimmer vintage style card backs, complete with a 5.5-inch figure in the blister bubble. So let's take a look at some of the other wacky variations. Leech here mostly looks similar to the standard release, albeit the torso is made of a much lighter green plastic than the limbs. He's also sporting a black version of the Horde crossbow, a color we did not see released in the US. And check out the sweet purple he's rocking on his shins and arms. It's an odd color choice for sure, but that is what makes him so great. Looking at Beastman, you don't notice too much different with his body. He's the typical orange in color, but it is a bit more pale than the deeper color seen on the US release. The standout here has got to be his armor. Instead of the medallion just being painted like a blue dot that we're used to seeing, this version of Beastman has a dark blue triangle covering the entire lower portion of the armor. Prince Adam is quite an interesting variant. Just like with the US release, he's merely a repaint of the He-Man figure wearing a new cloth vest. The skin tone and the color of the hair on this version are a bit darker than usual, and the vest, while similar in color, appears to be made of a different material. It's a bit thicker, almost having a fuzzier texture to it. And the belt is completely different, this time being a baby blue color instead of the usual black, with a small golden bead stitched to the front. Also worth noting, this version's power sword is gray instead of that weird pink color that was given to the standard release in the US. I actually prefer this, as it makes much more sense for his sword to be this color. Now we come to one of the really interesting variations. This is probably one of my personal favorites. Extendar is known for having a pearlized white color to his armor, with bronze-colored accents on the gloves, shoulders, and boots that oftentimes are seen to fade to a greenish color due to oxidation over time. The Leo Toys variation has a deeper colored gray used for the armor, which almost has a marble-like finish to it. The gloves, shoulders, and boots have a very nice, slightly metallic copper paint deco. The overall color scheme on this version actually looks much nicer than the US release. He maintains his extending action feature as well, allowing you to elongate his torso, legs, and arms just by pulling on them. But the extending neck works completely different on this release, as Leo Toys actually added a spring mechanism. By pressing down on Extendar's head, the neck springs out in full extended mode. By pressing the head back down, it clicks and locks back in place. It works really well and adds a whole new feeling to this figure. Okay, if we're gonna talk about Leo Toys Masters of the Universe figures, there is one figure in particular that absolutely has to be discussed. This figure has some incredible, striking differences from the standard release that have made him a huge fan favorite and one of the most valuable and sought-after figures in the entire line. Of course, I'm speaking of the evil robot of Skeletor known as Faker. The blue-skinned He-Man lookalike is wearing an orange version of Skeletor's armor, but unlike on the standard release from the US, the Leo Toys version also includes an orange version of Skeletor's belt armor and an orange version of the Havoc staff. In addition, black paint around the eyes makes it appear as if he's wearing a small eye mask, with the additional green paint seen just above his red pupils. He's quite amazing, arguably cooler looking than the standard release that we're used to seeing. It's really easy to see why he is such a sought-after figure, typically bringing in high dollar. In fact, most of the Leo Toys figures do. The fact is that these are just quite rare and hard to find, especially on this side of the pond. And what we've taken a look at today are just a few figures offered in the overall Leo Toys Masters of the Universe toy line. So in 1991, laws changed and restrictions were lifted, allowing Mattel to finally import materials. They continued their Leo Toys joint venture through the 1990s. This finally came to an end when Mattel terminated their partnership with Blow Plast Incorporated, citing that they were unable to meet Mattel's quality standards. So by the year 2000, Mattel incorporated as Mattel Toys India Private Limited, allowing them to move forward on their own terms and officially putting an end to Leo Toys. It's a pretty fascinating story and allowed for children in a different part of the world to discover and experience many of Mattel's wonderful toy offerings, while inadvertently creating some incredibly unique variations that would go on to be highly sought after by longtime fans and collectors. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Toysplosion. I truly hope you enjoyed taking a look at these super awesome, super weird, super rare toys. I had a lot of fun putting this one together. Toysplosion is a Patreon supported show, so I have to give a very special thanks to all the names you see scrolling across the screen right now. I definitely could not do this without their support. If you would like to become a supporter of the show yourself, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/pixeldan. It's only $1 a month to support the show, and there's lots of perks like early viewings of Toysplosion episodes, other episodes. I ask you guys for help making videos. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. I have to give a massive shout out to my good friend and amazing collector, Curtis, who allowed me to shoot all of his super rare Leo Toys figures for this video. It was amazing getting to see these in person. I have only seen pictures of most of these, and some of them I didn't even know existed before I got a chance to check out Curtis's figures in person. He also read over the script and made sure everything looked good. So Curtis, thank you so much for helping me out. You guys all should go check out his Instagram page. It's Spirit of Snake Mountain. There's some underscores there. I'll make sure I link directly to it in the video description. Seriously, if you like the stuff that you saw in this video, Curtis's collection is pretty mind-blowing, and he posts lots of great pictures on his Instagram page. So go show him some love. Go check him out on Instagram. Until next time, guys, I really appreciate you always watching, enjoying the show. Take care, my friends.